Mark Gregory. Today is October 21st, 2006. This is part of the O-State Stories, an oral history project of the OSU Library. I would like to introduce my mother, Betty Gregory.
Thank you.
So Mom, let's talk a little bit about when you came to school here.
When I came in the fall of 1942 and spent that year. Then I took off the next year. This was back during the war, and I taught school for a year. Then I came back in the fall of 44 and pledged a sorority at that time and majored in home economics, and then went to graduated then in 1946.
Okay. What sorority did you pledge?
I was in Alpha Delta Pi. A friend that I had known through 4-H Club throughout the years was a member, and she introduced me, and so I became a member of the same sorority she was in. Her name was Jean McGilliard, and we had lots of 4-H Club stories to tell through the years.
Well, it sounds like 4-H was an active part of your life before you came to college.
It really was. Very active in 4-H, and in fact that was the reason I came to Oklahoma A&M, because I had 4-H Club scholarships to come here, and my parents were both working but couldn't afford expenses at that time, so I was very fortunate.
Where was home?
Home was northwest Oklahoma, a little town named Capron, which a lot of people don't know where it is, but it's north and east of Alva, which is the county seat. And I guess our claim to fame at that time was when we had a tornado come through and took our schoolhouse. Our house was across the street, didn't hurt us. And we went to school in the church for the rest of the year, and grade school students went in homes, and my mother was teaching, and so we had the 4th grade in our living room for the rest of that year. Then they built the new building, and we got to graduate out of the new building. Also played basketball there too.
Did you play basketball up here at A&M, or what kind of activities did you have?
I played basketball in intramural sports, and I don't remember the year now, we won the girls intramural one year, which we were very pleased with, and we had a lot of fun.
What about campus life?
I didn't do a lot on campus. Of course, we had I was home ec major, so we had our home ec classes. I was mainly in sorority, and then I worked a lot with the collegiate 4-H Club people on campus, and was fortunate enough to get to make a couple of trips my first year when I was a senior, when I was a freshman here.
So where were those trips?
And incidentally, they both were in Chicago. We got to go, I was on the meets judging team for the state, and we went to the international and had our judging contest. Also, we took a demonstration up there too. And that year we worked in dairy demonstrations, and my teammate and I got to go, and it was, they combined the Dairy Association with the International that year. So I kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone that year. But we had some great times, great memories. And so many of the 4-H kids who were that we grew up around all the state came to Oklahoma A&M, and we had an active collegiate club that we met with a lot, and still have friends that we hear from occasionally.
What about places around town and places you hung out? I remember stories of swims.
Well, yes, there were swims. I didn't go there a lot. There wasn't a lot. Of course, then none of us had cars, but there were buses that we could get on and ride downtown, and or you could ride it. It would deliver you to classrooms around the campus. And I guess probably what to me the most important place would have been the Y Hut, which people don't remember where it is, but That's where I met your dad. So it's always been a very special part in my life. And it's just was a little place right over across the street from this building, now right back of the old economics building. And there again, my big sister played in that. She called me and said, let's have a Coke when you get out of lab. I had a chem lab that afternoon. I had lots of chem labs. And I really wasn't in a very good mood when I got there, and she had detained your father, and I said, I want you to meet somebody, and so he waited and met me. Fortunately, he called me again.
And what was Pop's story as far as coming to school? Where did he grow up, and how did he get to OSU?
Well, he grew up down in the southeast part of the state. Very poor part of the state, really. He was the youngest of 12 children, the only one who went to college, and his mother was extremely proud of him. He went to Murray in Tishomingo for 2 years, which the only way he could afford to go was he went in to enroll, wanted to be a history teacher. The only jobs available were in the dairy barn. So he changed his major to agriculture and he worked in the dairy barn. And after the 2 years there, then he came up to Oklahoma A&M. And there again, he ran into that. Dr. Wilhelm talked to him and said, if you'll keep your major as agriculture, I'll get you a job. And that time it was sweeping out the horse barn instead of the dairy barn. But that was his main thing. And he loved history, but he was good at agriculture too. And he loved it. He loved meeting with the people. So we had a lot of fun. He pledged farmhouse. And but the important thing about your dad was he came in the fall of 40. And of course, the day after Pearl Harbor in 41, he left school and enlisted in the Air Corps. And of course, he lost those 4 years before he got 3 or 4 years before he came back. But something that is, to me, is important is that Dr. Wilhelm issued an order that anybody who enlisted whose grades were in good standing, they got credit for that semester's grades, even though they weren't here to finish. So he didn't lose his schooling. And then he came back in the fall of 44 and 45. I guess we met somewhere in 45 probably. And we had a lot of fun on campus. We'd go to the old gym for dances. Sororities would have dance hour, the boys would come. Your dad and I used to go to, we'd go to track meets, anything that we could go do. And I never let him forget about the first one he took me to, because we got up and he didn't have any money, and I did, so I paid for the first one. But after that, he always had enough money to get us in. But we loved to do the things on campus that everybody else was involved in. So he graduated in 46 also, but stayed on a year and got his master's in 1947. And then from there, he worked for Oklahoma State University for 35 years, which was great.
And what did he do, and then what did you do after you graduated from college? When you say you worked for Oklahoma A&M? Yes,
at that time, after I graduated, I was supposed to go. I was a foods and nutrition major, so I had an appointment to go to Ohio State to work my internship off as a hospital dietitian. But by then I had met your dad, and we were making plans, so I didn't go ahead and go to Ohio State. So I taught school. I taught school in Texas for a year, and which I never regretted, even though I would love to have finished as a dietitian, but I never regretted not going up there. And I think it worked. I think me having had the 4-H experience, both out in the county and on campus with all the leaders, Paul Adams and all the people here, it was easy for me to work with Ed at times out on his job, because he worked with 4-H as well as adults. And we just felt very fortunate that we both had been able to get through college. and have good jobs, and then have 3 fine kids. Someone asked me the other day about giving me a hard time in the house. I had someone, what was you? And I just said, well, we bleed orange in this house. And this young man said, oh. And I said, well, we both graduated. All 3 of our children graduated. Our son-in-law graduated. A daughter-in-law was in school, didn't ever get completely through. And we have a granddaughter up there now as a freshman. So we just don't talk about any other school. But it was a good life, and the job that he had was good, even though he loved history, even though he wanted to be a history teacher. He loved to read history. So, and that worked in with my genealogy work. So it's, I think having met people back then, I guess if we could back up a little bit, and maybe I shouldn't do that, but when I first got here in 42, as I told you as we walked past Willard Hall a minute ago, that's where I was rooming, and I was rooming with an upperclassman whom I never met. We'd been there 3 weeks, and they called us in for a midnight meeting, and it was a Friday. We had to be out of the dorm by Monday morning. The waves were coming in, and they were taking over Willard. So they put the upperclassmen out in town, and by then they were renting fraternity houses for Victory, calling the Victory House. I was fortunate to be moved to Murray, and with another freshman I had not met, but she was great. And I always remember carrying my clothes across the street from Willard to Murray, and this big black car was coming, and I stopped, but it stopped, and Dr. Bennett just waved real big and said, good luck, and I went on. So he didn't know me, but that's okay.
And Dr. Bennett was president at that time?
He was president at that time, yes. And I think he could not possibly know everybody's names, and I'd never met him before. But he knew I was a student, and he knew why I was moving. So it worked out great.
And what about Dr. Wilhelm? Because I assume Dr. Wilhelm is the Wilhelm that everything's named for?
He was a super person, and I did not have as much direct contact with him as Ed did. But he was, we've always been close to, I guess, all the people on campus. And I've always said, and I don't know whether you'll agree with this or not, but you 3 kids, it really wasn't like going away to college when you came up here then, because in Ed's work, we were on campus so often, and we would bring you. And I think if you had homecoming, I can remember homecomings, we'd come up the day before and stay in the Union, and then I'd turn you 2 boys loose in the morning, and we'd say, be here at a certain time. And one day we walked, and we found you both out helping some fraternity fix their fraternity house, for the walk around. And I think it was good to have that closeness. And of course, for years, we had season football, baseball, basketball, and wrestling tickets. And so anybody wanted to find us during those seasons, they knew we'd be up here. I feel very loyal to the university. It took me a while to learn to say Oklahoma State after they changed it from Oklahoma A&M, but it didn't upset me particularly because I thought we were growing and changing with the time. So it was a happy years, happy times.
Anything you want to say? I mean, you kind of summed up where I was headed here as far as the legacy. I mean, you and Pop both only children in your class, in your home to go to school.
Yes.
And certainly started that for us as children, and now you got grandchildren up here. Anything you want to add to that legacy?
I don't know what else to add really, other than I just think that, well, I've heard your dad say something to the effect that we truly owe everything to the university because we got our education up here, and we were able to go out and get good jobs. Your dad had a good job. I taught for several years after you were in college, I guess, by the time I went back teaching, but I was able to teach, and we had that background of a good, solid education And we had the loyalty, the fun. It's still, I still love to come up and just look around and see things. Even though it's changed a lot, it's nothing like it was when we were here. But because kids didn't have cars. Now, that was during the war. My roommate, when I was in Murray, had a car. And I never was sure how she got her gasoline to drive it, but her father was quite an important man in the state of Oklahoma, and so she had plenty of gas. She could drive, but most of us didn't even have a car, let alone be able to buy the gas, you know. But we really didn't go anywhere. We didn't go off campus. We did everything on campus. Everything was planned so that you could attend most anything here. And I think one thing that I like, and I'm getting away from A&M now, but as the buildings have been built, I've been pleased to see that they've used the same architecture, the same style. Because to me, it's one of the most beautiful campuses. And I just think those years, I actually was only in school 3 years. I went 3 summers to make it up so that I still graduated with my class in 46. But it was busy times, but did it, and we made it. And of course, I've always said the important thing was I met your father up here, and we had 57 great years. So all in all, I think it was a super experience, and I loved every minute of it.
Well, it sounds like it, and speaking for all 3 of the kids, thank both you and Pop.
You're good. Thank you, darling. Yeah.
Any memories of the library?
Yes, very definitely. We would come over to the library. I was a foods major. I had to take a lot of chemistry. I knew nothing about chemistry. The first class I went to, the teacher just started as if everybody in there knew it, and I didn't. I met a young lady who lived in the same dorm. Well, I met her across the hall from me in Willard, and then she moved in Murray. Her name was Mary Bell, and she was a whiz at chemistry. So she would always help me in the lab, and the teacher knew she was. Mary would just say, "You do what I tell you to do. I'll tell you when we get home." I said, "Okay." Then too, at that time, they would put copies of the tests in the library, past tests, for us to come and study. So I spent a lot of hours over in here pulling those old tests, and of course they'd be changed, but over the same matter.
In the 40s, it wasn't this current building though, right? It was a different. Do you remember? I think they built this one in 53.
Okay, the library, where was it? It wasn't that library.
I've seen pictures of castle. It looks like a castle type. Williams Hall, maybe.
Williams Hall, over here where the Sheraton used to be.
Okay, that's where it
I
was.
mean,
That
in
was
that area.
that was it. Yeah, that was. I've always probably right where this building is now. About
I think it was on the
no
other
far-
side of Old Central. I think.
was it?
I think.
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, I remember how it was.
So the student union wasn't here
No,
at the time
didn't
that you
have a
were.
student union
Or where did students gather
at the White.
at the White House?
It was a very small place, and Swims, which was on the corner over here where what's the name, Cowboy
One of the bookstores is.
Bookstore now or something. That was Swims, and we did not have the corner up here like you have now either. But the Y Hut was very small, and it was run by a blind man, and I never figured out how that man could tell. And of course, everybody was very careful, but he could make change, you know, and everything. And so that was our main thing. Then and like I said, we had lots of dances over in the old gym, which is the
Architecture building.
Architecture building now. And sometimes it was, what do we call them, the varsity? Can't remember what the band, it was a band on campus.
Oh, the name of the band?
The varsity something, I can't remember. But it was funny because when we were married and we went on our honeymoon, we went to Noel, Missouri to Ginger Blue Lodge. And we walked in that night to the dance room, and there was the varsity band. They had a little fun with us because they recognized us. But it was mostly just self-contained things. We didn't Oh, we'd go to movies downtown. We did go bowl sometimes, but we could always ride the bus for a nickel or a dime. I can't remember which.
Well, what were homecoming events like?
Nothing like this. There were, we did, as I recall, we still had parades, but not as massive as they are now. But it was a time, lots of fun. We really did. We had fun, and of course it changed. I think probably when the boys came home from the service, things were, I don't know how you say it, more. Well, we all knew there was a real reason why we were here, that they'd been over fighting so that we could have these privileges, and I think people were more sincere and really worked harder in. Of course, you still had your fun and games, but.
Do you remember about how much tuition may have been?
You know, I can't remember, and the figure $31 goes through my head, and surely it wasn't just $31.
I don't know, it could have been.
I don't know, and I didn't even think to look that up because I'm sure I have it somewhere. As Mark knows, I never throw anything away. But it was very, very reasonable, I know that, and I know one of the scholarships I got paid for all my books. Of course, now it would be outlandish, but things were not, not that expensive. I did, like I say, I stayed out the 1 year and taught school and saved my money so I could come back for the last 2.
Well, what did women wear to class back then?
Dresses.
I'm sure it's not what they
No,
wear
we
today.
wore dresses, skirts and blouses.
Skirts and
I don't ever remember even owning a pair of pants. And in fact, as I recall, when Dad brought me to college, Mother had made me 2 corduroy skirts and 1 corduroy jacket that would go with both skirts. And I can't remember something else, not very much else, so we just didn't.
Well,
And
no one did though.
Yeah, it was all dresses or skirts and blouses. I just don't remember seeing anybody ever wearing pants to.
Where did they hold graduation ceremonies, or did they do that then?
Oh, we held them in what is now the Sorority Center. It was an auditorium, and that's where our graduation service was. I remember that now.
Well, was Pistol Pete the mascot then? I don't know my Oklahoma history
I
too much.
no, I don't think we had Pistol Pete then. I don't believe we did. I think we were just the Cowboys.
Maybe he came along after it became OSU. Do you know, Mark?
I was trying to think. I saw that just the other day when Pistol Pete was, when they asked him to be the mascot, and I just don't remember. It was while we were still in the Big 6, before the Big
Something
8,
like
I
that.
believe. So
I don't remember that.
it was about the same time as switching, I believe.
I think, too, one of the things, maybe the reason that I like basketball, and I still have my basketball tickets, I was here when we won the national championship, the 2 years in a row.
Oh, in the 40s.
And I never will forget, they staged a walkout, and I was in a chemistry class that day, and the professor locked the doors. So the kids took the doors off the hooks from the outside so we could go join and we went all over campus, and met. And that was when Bob Curlin and Cecil Hankins and, Wendell, what was his name? I should have looked a little further. Because they all signed my yearbook that year. They ate in the cafeteria at Murray, where I was staying. And I saw just the other day I was looking and they all signed my yearbook. So I think that's the reason I've loved basketball because we had so much fun then.
Well, what do you think it is about OSU that inspires such loyalty and passion, pride? Can you put it into words?
Well, personally, excuse me, I think to me it is the friendship. First, I don't know why other schools are not this way, but I've heard others are. To me, everybody seems to be a friend of anybody. Now, when I pledged a sorority, some of my best friends never pledged sororities, but they were still my best friends. And there was no distinction as far as they were concerned with being Greek or being independent. Of course, I'd lived as an independent 1 year, but that didn't make any difference. And when I pledged, that was fine. You know, they were great. And I think that's, to me, is one thing that makes it, well, I think and maybe other schools do this too, I don't know. But some of my best friends are friends that were friends when I was a freshman. I still hear from them. One of my roommates I still hear from. They're in Illinois, Mary's in Nebraska. We don't get to see each other very often, you know, but we keep up. And I think that's what, particularly the warriors probably, the girls got closer. There weren't that many. Well, there were men on campus too because the Navy was here. We had the Waves and the Navy, and a lot of them. And we had an Air Force attachment, I think. Because I believe I got some pictures. I have to go through my album one of these days. But as far as, you know, the kids, most of us felt like that those who wanted to be here weren't here because they were off doing their duty, and we were very proud of all of them.
Well, do you get any special feelings when you step on campus these days? Or you come too often to notice?
No, I don't know. I always just feel very comfortable. I just feel like, even though it's changed a lot, and I'm not sure where everything is, I think probably I had a little bit of an advantage in that with Ed working, he worked for Co-op Extension, and he came to the campus so often, and while the children were little, I would just put them in the car, we'd all come up. And the kids and I would just wander sometimes over the campus. And I think maybe the changes have not affected me as much as someone who hasn't been back for several years. Because those that come in and they haven't been here in years, you know, they just can't get over it. But I think maybe we kind of saw it change.
So you would have seen Theta Pond change into Theta Pond then?
Yes,
we've
heard a lot about Theta Pond. I never had too much to do down there, but it was always talked about. And
any other traditions you can think of related to OSU?
Not really. I can't think of anything.
What about any rivalries with our sister university to the south?
Well, a little bit. We just didn't have too much to do with them because we wore beanies. And if you, of course, not all the time, but if you were walking across campus and somebody said, "What do you say, freshman?" You said, "Yes, beat OU." So they drilled that into us real quick. But we didn't have a lot of contact. I don't know that I ever went down there for a game of any kind, but most of us didn't. Mm-hmm. We didn't have cars. We couldn't travel to other schools. We'd like to, you know, but we attended everything here. So my OSU rivalry have escalated since the last few years. So
with a third generation here on campus too, you would.
Yeah, we're real pleased, and our granddaughter also pledged the same sorority that I was in, and of course our daughter had too. So we have 3 generations that have been in that house, and which is kind of different.
Do they respond to alumni different today than they did then? The house?
They're very nice. They're very good. I did not put any pressure this year. I filled out a rec, you know, as a grandmother and everything, but I didn't stress anything because I have seen it backfire. And I know several years ago when I was working with the sorority quite a lot, I saw one really backfire because the alums stepped in and started really pushing, and the question in the girls' minds, what's wrong with her? Because they hadn't been active before, so I wasn't about to push, you know. But after she pledged, and I visited with the girls, and it was interesting because once or twice I said something about the house has changed so since I was here. You mean you used to live in this house? And I said, well, before it was remodeled, you know. So I was kind of glad they had not connected it too much. I mean, I didn't want to take her just because she's my granddaughter. But I really don't know as far as rivalries and things like that. I don't remember us really being too much. It was And I don't really remember then as the Greeks versus the Independents as much as they have sometimes. It was, of course, we were small then, and but I can't think of anything else exciting that happened. I just
Did they have log burning, like for homecoming? Someone said that they used
had
it,
one. Was that?
where they burn logs.
A big bonfire or anything?
Bonfires at
Was it
homecoming.
big?
You know, I don't remember they ever did when I was in. I think they did later. But I don't remember that they ever did. Because I'm sure we'd have gone if they had. I really don't remember any pep rallies or anything. I just remember when the basketball team won, those 2 years, they won the night, and they were the first team to do that. That we had a big, well, they did what I want to say, whipcord thing where they go over and just gather everybody up, you know, and form a line. But then they had a big, well, we went to the auditorium finally for a meeting, you know, so that they could introduce all the players and that sort of thing, you know. But I honestly don't remember any really pep rallies or things. I'm sure there were, but it's been a few years. So.
You still have your beanie?
Yes, I still have my beanie. I don't know where it is for sure, but I've got it. I even brought the boys some when they were little, and they used to wear them. But
Well, that's all my questions, unless you want to ask her any. So
No,
she's on the hot
I
seat.
think that's covered everything.
that covers some you didn't expect, probably.
No, that's good, Mom.
We
Well,
appreciate you
I
coming.
never, you know, I wasn't real sure. And like I said, I sat down last night and wrote down my dates as far as my husband was concerned. Yeah, I'd get confused. I knew when he graduated from high school. Of course, I didn't meet him until after the war. And so I always say, well, you know, maybe I have the war to thank that took him out of school for those years, because I'd have been gone by the time he got back.
Well, you were here when the Vet Village would have been.
No, it was after that.
It was after that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Shortly, it wasn't too
Right after
many
the war.
years after that, though, that they built that village, because some of our friends lived in those. We married in '47 after he graduated with his master's, and and he was president of the farmhouse that last year too. So, but I think they built that village after that.
That's right.
Well, they started having the vets come back, and the vets were beginning to get married, or some of them, of course, were before they left. And it was exciting times.
Well, the last question then
All right.
would be, what advice would you offer current or future students here at OSU?
Well, I don't know how to put that in really, other than some of them are not going to realize what a great deal they have right now. I mean, they're just going to class, and, you know, my mom and dad said, you got to go to school, that sort of thing. I think to try to get the most out of your classes and to be happy in your field. I have seen students when I was teaching go off to college, and they'd be upset then when they came home. They weren't happy in their field. And I think if they could be happy in their field, but I still think a lot of it goes back to friends, and keep in touch with friends through good and bad, because friends can help an awful lot. And I just think, personally, I think it's the only place in the world that we always laugh. We used to tell our children before our oldest got ready to go to college, they could go any place they wanted to in the United States, but the room and board and tuition was going to be paid in Stillwater. But I don't think any of them really worried about that. Of course, Mark got his degree here, and then he went to Penn State to get a master's, and we didn't object to that. But they all three got their degrees here, and we're very proud of all of them.
That's a good deal. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I hope I didn't rattle too much.